What's up guys, this is Anime Crossover. I'm back with another episode of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Sage of Six Paths Part 10, and if you did enjoy this video, give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions with a twist. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 18 The Souls in White. I feel several incredibly key in this town, an interested man stated. He was a tall, fair-skinned man with blue eyes and blonde hair that reached his mid-back, with strands forming a thick antenna-like shape hanging in front of his face, and a chest-length beard and mancho mustache to match. Despite the green long robe with a black belt he wears, his body is mostly strong and well-defined. However, those who appeared out of nowhere are stained and evil. "Ah, hello, mister." The man smiled as he peered down to see a young girl. "It's good to see you again. How was your trip?" "It was fine, little one," the man said as he patted the young girl's head. Helping people in need always satisfied this old man. The man always stopped by this town on his way back from a trip to help those in need, specifically the restaurant where he could find the little girl helping her parents run the place. "You're old," the girl remarked, tilting her head. "How old are you, mister?" "That's a trade secret." "What a pity." Kayuki, the guy and the girl said as they turned to see the girl's father approaching them with a bag in his hand. "It's impolite to ask someone their age. Here is your order, Mr. Furinji," he said, handing him the bag containing his customer's food. "I hope you still find our food satisfying after your last visit to our town, especially for a legend like you." "I always find your food satisfying, Mr. Takehito," the guy said as he took the bag from Takehito and placed it by his side. "And please call me Hayato because Mr. Furinji makes me feel old."
Takehito smiled as he watched Hayato escape by jumping over buildings. He turned around and walked back into the restaurant with his daughter. He came to a halt just outside the door, and Kayuki looked at him, puzzled. From here, he's heading east rather than south.
"Perhaps something piqued his interest, Papa." Takehito just nodded as he pushed his daughter inside the restaurant, following her. "I wouldn't be surprised if this town didn't attract someone like Hayato. I just hope he's not all rigged. Nah, he'll be fine." Karakura Senior High School. "Whoa. Did you guys feel that?" Yuto said, restraining himself from utilizing his sacred gear as everyone nodded. "What incredible strength."
Rias was looking in the area where she sensed the source of the immense energy that emerged out of nowhere, while recalling what she and her peerage had been doing seconds before. The group had congregated in the PE field during their lunch break for privacy and the assignment given to her by her brother, Searzex, a few days ago.
Her aim was to track out Naruto Uzumaki, a human. That was the end of it. Whoever this Naruto person is, he must be either important or dangerous in order to catch my brother's attention. Rias reasoned as her arms crossed her bosom, emphasizing them even more. Something concerned her about Uzumaki's uncanny ability to manipulate humans. While it is true that humans have the ability to do anything, whether or not they have sacred gear, there is something about this human that bothers me. Only she, Kaneko, and Akeno do not have a sacred gear among her peerage. However, neither of them is weak, and they can hold their own due to their own experiences and abilities.
Rias, the crimson-haired girl, was startled out of her reverie by a serious Issei, which surprised her. "Should we continue the mission or look into the strange powers over there?"
Issei called her name again. "Rias, how should we proceed?" The Gremory beauty sighed as she considered her next move, but there was something more bothering her. That boy with the orange hair and his friends are not normal. They wield incredible power. I must report to Graphia as soon as possible.
When Issei and the others were waiting for their master's commands, 4 shadows flew over them, forcing them to look up to find nothing but the ocean blue sky.
Alongside Naruto and the others, Man Yoruichi packs a punch just like Sakura did. Naruto grumbled inwardly as he used Shunshine on many buildings facing north, and he was not alone. He didn't have to look back to see Ichigo in Shinigami form carrying Chad and Yoruichi on her back carrying Orihime. "Man, why do I have to carry your lazy ass?" he asked Uryu, who was being carried by a clone. The clone's skull was covered in angry tick marks as a result of the sentence. "Hey, boss. You're not the one carrying them, I am."
"You are, in fact, me." Before replying, Yoruichi groaned and shook her head. "We don't know who we're up against or what they're capable of. Be on your guard and be ready for anything. Don't be reckless," she continued, glancing between Naruto and Ichigo, who were casually whistling. "Why am I hurt by your allegation, Yoruichi?" Naruto peered over his shoulder, disregarding the woman's shout of, "It's not an allegation." He then faced forward, a serious expression replacing the previous one, as the park came into view. "Let's introduce our visitors," the shinobi remarked, as the others nodded.
The super-powered soldiers suddenly vanished into the great sky, as if they had become one with it.
Ulquiorra Karakura Park. Yami in Ulquiorra Karakura Park. Yami yawned and wiped his lips, as if he had just eaten a feast. Except that the feast was made up of human souls. Various garments from men, women, and children were spread around the clearing's grass field. When he detected strong signs, his head pricked up. Ulquiorra.
Ulquiorra didn't say anything, didn't blink, didn't flinch when 5 people emerged on the opposite side of them in a blur, 2 of them seeming familiar.
"Those 2 must be the ones Lord Aizen described to us, Yami. The orange hair, the Shinigami robe, and a large Zanpakuto on his back, he is one of our targets." He looked at Ichigo before shifting his gaze to Naruto. Blonde hair, whisker-like markings on his cheeks, and an abnormally strong spiritual pressure. It is confirmed that these 2 are indeed the ones we're looking for. "Apparently we're wanted targets, Ichigo," Naruto observed calmly as he counted the quantity of clothing scattered on the ground. "That explains why people in the park suddenly vanished." He cast a peek towards Ichigo, who appeared to be suppressing his rage. "So, how do you want to do it?" Everyone turned at the shinobi, who crossed his arms and stared at their new foes. "Obviously, these guys are very strong, and the conventional wisdom imparted to me from my training says we should all work together and overwhelm them." "But, you interjected." Naruto turned to face Ichigo, namely the one behind him. "Big guy," Chad exclaimed when he heard Naruto's normal nickname for him. "I think Sumo here should be your opponent," Naruto said before taking Tenkaichi from its scabbard and pointing the blade at Ulquiorra, while Ichigo, "Yoruichi, and I deal with the other one."
"Uryu, stay with Orihime and protect her," Ichigo ordered, raising his arms and drawing Zangetsu from his back and holding it overhead. He stared at Naruto and Yoruichi, the latter of whom was doing one of his ninjutsu, Getsuga-ten. "Stop. Eh?" muttered a perplexed Naruto and Ichigo, tilting their heads. Surprisingly, they paid attention. "Why?" Yoruichi sighed as she walked behind the pair before striking them in the heads and knocking them to the ground. "Can't you see it? They're here not only for you too, but also to learn about your abilities."
"What do you mean?" an annoyed Ichigo said, massaging the bump on his head and echoing Naruto's response. "Because Naruto and I are powerhouses, we can take them on." "Don't forget that we're both power and offensive fighters," Naruto remarked, smiling as he processed what Yoruichi stated. Then it occurred to him. They're essentially scouts. As Ichigo, Chad, Uryu, and Orihime glanced at Naruto, Yoruichi nodded. "Scouts?" inquired Orihime, who stood behind Uryu.
"Yeah," Naruto said, puffing his cheeks and sheathing Tenkaichi. "Most likely that Dick Aizen wants to know how strong we really are, let alone what kind of powers and techniques we have." "He's clever," Ulquiorra said, his gaze never leaving the blonde. "Lord Aizen was correct about the human spiritual pressure," he said as he prodded Yami in the leg with his elbow, drawing his attention. "Go after them."
The larger man smugly grinned as he jumped from where he was standing and landed in front of Chad with a cocked arm ready to punch, while Naruto and the others rushed back to avoid the approaching assault. "Goodbye, twerp." The earth trembled as the force behind the attack launched debris into the air. "TCH, that guy was weak," Yami said under his breath. "Is that correct?" Yami's eyes widened as he heard that voice, and he was even more surprised when the dust cleared to reveal Chad still standing, deflecting his punch with his own. They were standing in a newly formed crater as a result of the attacks. But that wasn't the only thing that took him by surprise.
"What are those things?" He drew back his arm as Chad did the same, both of them staring at the glowing weird lion head gauntlets that covered his hands.
"It doesn't matter because I'll use my powers and these gauntlets to protect my friends," Chad stated flatly. He cocked his right fist, as did Yami. "Adios."
Despite his bulk, he delivered a quick blow as Yami unleashed another assault, causing a shockwave and another shake in the ground.
Everyone else was watching the conflict between their friend and new foe in the distance. The group's 2 powerhouses, on the other hand, are irritated at the prospect of facing a powerful opponent. Particularly Naruto. "Man, I wanted to fight that other guy, but Yoruichi had to be the party pooper here," he grumbled, ignoring the female Shinigami's gaze, "but this will benefit us in a variety of ways."
"How?" asked Orihime, who shielded her face with her arms from the dust churned up by the bottle's repeated shockwaves and earthquakes.
Ichigo explained this while his focus was fixed on the conflict. "They're here to learn about our abilities, right?" The orange-haired girl nodded. Well, that strategy is a two-way street, so we can also learn about them and their abilities. Oh, what about the... Yami's powerful strike to the chest sent Chad hurtling towards them, surprising and shocking everyone. As the towering human approached, Naruto stepped into his supposed flight trajectory and caught Chad with no effort, his body slipping back 1 foot on the ground. Hey big guy, you good? The shinobi questioned as he placed his friend on the ground, only to find his eyes closed. Damn, he passed out, he said, placing his left hand on the spot where Yami's fist made contact with his chest. There were no broken ribs or bones, only bruised organs.
Let me heal him. Orihime sat next to Naruto, who was kneeling, clearly concerned for her companion. Jinchuriki, the blonde, nodded at the girl. But not here, Orihime. Ignoring the perplexed look from the lovely healer, Naruto turned to the lethargic Yoruichi and stated, "Take them away from here. We can't have those guys witnessing Orihime's powers." The female Shinigami didn't like the notion, but she recognized their advantages over Aizen. Orihime's abilities are remarkable in that they can cure any wound as if it never existed. Also, because Ichigo and Naruto haven't seen the man's Shikai, they have some immunity and are the only ones who can fight him without distractions. Yoruichi reluctantly nodded before walking up and effortlessly hoisting Chad over her shoulder, despite the man's girth. She did the same thing with Orihime, only she hid him under her left arm before using Flash Step to disappear.
Ichigo, Naruto murmured as he took a big breath and stood up to face the smugly smirking Yami with Ichigo and you better start kicking this guy's ass before I do.
Ichigo pointed Zangetsu forward and shouted, "Bankai," without hesitation or reluctance.
Along with the elder, what an amazing power for a boy his age, pondered the elder before taking a mouthful of his dinner and watching the exciting duel.
The wise elderly man sat on the roof of a building next to the park that was tall enough to provide a bird's eye perspective. He was shocked to discover the source or sources of the huge key to be children as old as his granddaughter, with the exception of the dark-skinned woman who had just left seconds before. The young man with the orange hair has promise, and his eyes contain the desire to protect those close to him. Despite being far away, the man can see the conflict as if he were standing right there due to his years of combat and martial arts training.
Hayato's eagle eyes shifted from the cloud surrounding the orange-haired boy to the blonde boy. The same goes for him, except his eyes show something more than a teenager, more like a warrior who has fought countless battles and hardships. When his gaze shifted to the last one wearing glasses, he knew something was wrong with him. His key, it's unstable. What type of strength did the young man wield? As the cloud faded, he withdrew a toast bread from the bag and showed the youngster still dressed in the black robe but with notable alterations. Was that some kind of transformation? I wonder how good his swordsmanship is, he said as the child severed the larger man's right arm, forcing the latter to cry out in amazement. How disappointing, Hayato remarked as he took one final mouthful of bread before going into the bag and pulled out a lollipop. In retaliation for injuring his friend, he attacks his opponent with the intent to injure them. The orange-haired boy proceeded to dominate his opponent, while the other two teams and the larger man's colleague stood back. Hayato's eyes widened as he was about to finish his lollipop when he sensed a slight touch of a dark and twisted force emanating from one specific individual in the park. Park Karakuri, Naruto was perplexed by what had just occurred as he observed a shaking Ichigo on his knees. He was utterly overpowering Yami with his Bankai only a few minutes ago. Then his attacks were sluggish, and his defenses had more gaps than before. He now appears to be wrestling with something, as if something was trying to escape.
"Ichigo, what's wrong with you?" Uryu inquired, concerned and perplexed. "Kid, that dark power is trying to break free like last time," Kurama said telepathically to Naruto. "I know, and it appears that he's going for it, and he was correct."
Yami sneered at his Shinigami opponent's lack of defense and started to go towards Ichigo in retaliation for the latter's prior attacks. When he got close to Ichigo, who was barely lifting his head while clutching the left side of his face, a smug Yami lifted his left leg, intending to break the boy's spine. "Good luck fighting anyone when you're a vegetable, and I hope you don't mind." "But I do," Yami said in surprise as Naruto appeared in front of him and slammed a blue energy sphere in his right palm into his face. Rasengan. As he skidded across the ground away from Naruto and the downed Shinigami, the larger man's head brutally snapped backwards from the raw power of the assault. Ulquiorra's foot halted Yami before he could get very far. "Don't tell me you're done, Yami." When he didn't get an answer, the skinny man moaned, "Unbelievable."
His colleague passed out, as a result of a single attack.
Looks like your friend is out cold, bud. Naruto cracked his knuckles before forming another Rasengan. Your turn. There was no response, but a snap of fingers and a black hole appeared behind Ulquiorra, who was now dragging the unconscious Yami behind him. Hey. Where do you think you're going? Fine. We'll settle this another time. And tell that jerk Aizen.
Imagine Ulquiorra's amazement when he hesitated just before the portal and looked over his shoulder to hear what he had to say.
Tell him that we'll be ready for whatever he throws at us, and that Ichigo and I will defeat him, Naruto vowed solemnly, breaking the ground near his feet with a little amount of his chakra.
The extraordinarily pale-skinned male looks into the blonde human's blue eyes and recognizes he has the power and strength to back it up. After a few moments, Ulquiorra turned back and dragged a drooling and somewhat scorched Yami into the black hole.
Along with the elder. I see, there's going to be a big battle, Hayato muttered, his hands clapping together as he absorbed what had just happened. He's strong-willed and confident, and that attack he demonstrated was that a key attack. He stood up to his full height, which made him as tall as the fence encircling the rooftop. Perhaps that boy wouldn't mind if where have they gone? The three adolescents had already fled the area to avoid any witnesses while he was ruminating to himself. Their ki cannot be detected in any direction, indicating that they have experience, and experience implies a challenge. A challenge implies a worthy opponent, which got the wise man's blood boiling. Ho ho, they managed to give me the slip and suppress their ki without my noticing, Hayato exclaimed, his eyes shining excitedly. Perhaps I should stay a little longer. The old man then jumped from the roof to the ground below, amid a cacophony of automobile horns, screeching tires, and cursing.
In the late evening, with Rias Peerage, wow, Rias, is this your family's home? One of them, Issei. Her family owns a lot of houses all over Japan, so you shouldn't be surprised.
Issei nodded to Kiba on his right before turning to face the house that would be their temporary residence. It was a large mansion with crimson-red walls and 2 rows of windows, indicating that it was a 2-story structure. Layers of carefully groomed grass surround the house's front yard, with flower beds ringing a fountain in front of the house and in the middle of the driveway. I call the first room upstairs, Kaneko replied, lugging a large amount of stuff on her back with ease. She and the others proceeded forward and into their new house. Rias had organized a group meeting in the living room to discuss the events of the day after everyone had chosen their bedrooms and settled in. Specifically, the 2 distinct power sources that materialized in the town's park. Have you found anything, Kiba and Issei? She dispatched the 2 lads to scan the park for the 2 powers, emphasizing caution owing to their immense might.
Kiba and Issei were sitting on a couch next to Asia, who seemed nervous. Rias sat alone in a couch, her legs crossed like an elegant woman, while Kaneko sat alone in a chair, munching a chocolate chip cookie. After brewing and serving her trademark tea to everyone, Akeno soon joined her by standing behind her.
The young blonde male was the one who talked. On our way to the park, Issei and I sensed several power signatures, which then vanished, and when we arrived, there was no one there, including the strong power signatures.
But the traces left behind were strong. Faint but strong, Issei added as he snaked his fingers around Asia's back, only to be smacked in the head by a cookie crumb. Ow! Everyone turned their gaze from the unconscious Issei to a disgusted Kaneko, leading them all to chuckle and grin.
Rias. Everyone stopped laughing and turned their attention to the small girl, minus Issei. Earlier today at school, when we arrived at our classroom, you mentioned our target's name. Rias and the others nodded, and 4 students reacted when they heard that name. Who were they? Rias wondered, hopeful. If these pupils recognize Uzumaki, it will make things easier for her in her peerage. Did they have any distinguishing physical characteristics? They both have orange hair. Oh, Urahara's store.
Alone. That's all Ichigo wants right now, after waking up from what appears to be a fading spell. Instead, everyone was waiting for him to wake up and say something the moment he awoke. Ichigo, spill it. What are you talking about? Ichigo asked, faking ignorance.
Naruto scoffed, drawing everyone's attention, particularly Ichigo's. Don't play man, he said again when Ichigo opened his mouth. I'm referring to the power that manifested itself back in Soul Society. What is he talking about, Ichigo? Inquired Orihime, who was tending to a bandaged Chad who was seated next to her and against the wall.
Ichigo groaned and dropped his head for a few moments, contemplating his next move. He may pretend it's nothing and that he'll handle it, or he could confide in them and work together to overcome it. It's nothing, Ichigo said as he stood up and exited the room. When they heard the door close, they all turned to look at Naruto, who was leaning against the wall. "Okay, Naruto, no games. Tell us what's going on with Ichigo and what this power you mentioned," Uryu demanded. Instead, he saw the blonde adolescent disappearing into his room. "Wait a minute.
Let him go, or you," the glasses-wearing Quincy said as Naruto exited the room, clearly irritated if the crushed door is any indication. Why won't Naruto or, better yet, Ichigo tell us? Yoruichi was ready to respond, but Orihime beat her to the punch.
Doesn't he trust us?" Orihime wondered, a little wounded.
Yoruichi sighed as Chad placed his right hand on the girl's shoulders to console her, which he did, albeit briefly. Ichigo has a power he doesn't understand, all he needs is time.
As for Naruto, Urahara said cheerfully, he understands what Ichigo is going through, but he also knows it's not his place to tell his secret. He remembered Naruto telling him about his status as a Jinchuriki and having a dark power inside of him when he first arrived at his shop and received the key. His and everyone else's attention was quickly drawn to Orihime, who sheepishly waved at them after yawning.
After then, everyone began yawning like if it were a disease that was spreading to everyone in the room. "Why don't you all sleep here tonight? After today's events, I'm pretty sure you'd feel better with us around," Yoruichi suggested, and the youngsters agreed with nods. Tessai and the kids guided the teens to the guest room, and she sat next to a sitting yet Urahara, indicating that it's business now. "They arrived earlier than you anticipated, Kazuki."
Sai knew Aizen needed the Hogyoku for his plans to succeed, and when Naruto instead retrieved and returned the Hogyoku, I knew his plans would be slightly delayed. He looked at his female childhood friend. "Are they strong?" "Very," Yoruichi answered solemnly, a sneer on his lips. "Nothing we can handle."
World of Haweko, the huge tower that serves as the home base for Aizen, his Shinigami colleagues, and his colleagues from the opposing group stood in the land and home of the Hollows. The Bible's fallen angel group. The unknown defected members are commanded by Kokobile, who believes that Azazel, his overall leader, was a fool to terminate the fight against the angels and devils. Inside the great tower, there is a vast room with a tall white throne, and sitting on it was none other than Aizen himself, his arrogant smirk remaining on his face.
"Kokobile, what news do you have for me?" Aizen asked confidently as the black-winged figure swooped through the royal room, landing in front of the Shinigami. "I hope your soldiers found her," he said, more as a sentence than a question.
Kokobile nodded, a sickening grin on his face, and raised his right palm, channeling his energies into it. When he accomplished this, a dark circle with a raven symbol in the center appeared, revealing a graphic map with a yellow beeping dot and a sequence of coordinates beside it. "She's somewhere near this area between the ocean and land, of all places, near Karakura town. However, tell me why you require this woman."
"Sai, unfortunately, I lack Kazuki Urahara's Hogyoku, which delays my plans to become the new ruler of the world of the living and soul society, and her powers are critical to restoring my Hogyoku to full strength." Kokobile giggled forcefully. "Does something amuse you? You've heard the rumors about her, so you know she won't come willingly with us and her children." Regardless, Aizen interjected before a thought occurred to him. "I also heard a rumor of her beauty being unparalleled and attractive enough to capture one of her brother's attention." He chuckled evilly as the thought of the woman being solely his captivated him. "I wouldn't mind a woman like her to be my bride, even if she's under my control." Suddenly, a small garganta opened in the center of the royal room, and Ulquiorra emerged, dragging an unconscious Yami. "Lord Aizen, I have a report on the two humans, including a message from one of them," Aizen said, motioning him to say the message. What followed was a loud laugh. Two laughs that rang out across Haweko Mundo. Soul Society. 3 days later, Yukataki and Hitsugaya stood by the Senkan Gate, which joins Soul Society in the world of the living, waiting for their visitor. Is he always late or is he an idiot? Enraged the young commander. He despises those who are frequently late, notably his own lieutenant.
He's unique in some ways. Yukataki couldn't help but wonder what worried the Shinigami members of Division 12 as he reflected on the previous days. Later, when he and the other captains, including the rescued Hitsugaya, were given very worrying reports by Kuretsuchi, who was either too excited or insane to adequately describe who their adversary is, he was either too excited or maniacal to properly explain who their opponent is. When Hitsugaya was about to ask another question, the gateway light flashed briefly before dimming, showing the blonde shinobi in dark blue jeans and an orange t-shirt under a black leather jacket. "Hey, Captain Yukataki, how have you been?" he exclaimed excitedly as he approached the Shinigami, who happily shook his hand. After the handshake, Naruto spotted the other Shinigami, the shorter Shinigami. "Where is the shrimp?" "Shrimp? Hitsugaya said with a tick mark, as Yukitake laughed behind his hand. I am not a shrimp. I am Gote 13 Captain Toshiro Hitsugaya, and you will treat me as such.
No, I won't, Naruto said, chuckling as he noticed the shorter boy muttering to himself. So I see you recovered well from your injuries, Hitsugaya said, pausing to grumble a response. I heard the injured lieutenant was a childhood friend of yours. How is she doing?
Hitsugaya was taken aback by the human's question before his face broke into tears. Lieutenant Hinamori was just transferred from the ICU, but she still needs to recover. Uzumaki, thank you for asking. Not a problem. So, what's up? You guys weren't clear when you sent your message yesterday, Yukitake said solemnly, implying that this is serious. It's about those two guys who showed up in Karakura town a few days ago.
There's no doubt about it. How astute of you, Kurama, Ashura commented after connecting to the link, which astonished Naruto and Kurama. How did you connect with the link, Ashura? You're my reincarnation, Naruto, Ashura deadpanned, forcing the Jinchuriki to smile sheepishly. Are you okay, Uzumaki? While Naruto was chatting with the two voices in his head, Yukitake and Hitsugaya observed the youngster and were intrigued by the boy's previous expressions. Naruto cleared his throat and pointed to the 1st Division barracks after realizing they had been watching him the entire time.
Shall we? The two Shinigami asked, nodding, and the three men began walking towards the barracks, specifically Yamamoto's office. As they walked on, Naruto asked the one question that had been bothering him since the two odd guys in white arrived. Do you two know who those two white guys are? We don't know who they are, but we know what they are, Yukitake said, his bearing unaffected. When Naruto motioned with his arm as if to continue, the men you and your friends encountered are Arrankars, based on your hazy description of them and their spiritual pressures at the time.
Arrankars? What do you know about them? Inquired Naruto, raising an eyebrow.
We know quite a bit about them, but the head captain said he wanted to personally tell you about them, Hitsugaya stated, gaining a nod from the human before the three of them fell silent until they arrived to the head captain's office. It was nice to meet you, Uzumaki, we're lucky to have you as an ally. It was nice to meet you, Shrimp, Naruto replied, chuckling at the shorter Shinigami's brief outburst at being called Shrimp. Let's spar sometime, I hear you have the most powerful ice-type Zanpakuto in Soul Society.
The human's request for a spar astonished the young Shinigami. He'd be lying if he said he didn't want to face the person who fought the head captain. When a little pause, Hitsugaya smiled and said, perhaps after we deal with Aizen, I will take you up on that. Until then, Naruto. Bye. Naruto waved goodbye to the two departing Shinigami captains before entering Yamamoto's office. What have I gotten myself? Kurama and Ashura both commented at the same time, a war, a war. The Jinchuriki moaned gently to himself before regaining his composure and opening the doors to see the elderly Yamamoto sitting at his desk. When the Shinigami spotted Naruto, he interpreted it as a sign and shut the doors. Naruto, kid, the Jinchuriki snorted with his eyes closed, doing the second best thing he can think of, sleeping. Sleepy time, he murmured, resting his head on a comfortable pillow next to a puddle of drool. The first thing he should do is consume a lot of food to replenish his reserves and vigor.
Kurama and Ashura sighed at the youngster, but they knew that any warrior, no matter how powerful, needed to rest their bodies so they could be ready for the next fight, or in this instance, training.
We should get started on his weapon training. He is the one who asked for my assistance, Ashura grumbled, despite the fact that she was dead. Would you like to bother him until he wakes up? What are your thoughts? The tailed beast and the ethereal shinobi repeated their slogan, wake up. To the younger youngster, get up, get up. After 30 minutes of incessant chattering, Naruto awoke as he stirred in his futon beneath his sheets. Fine. I'm up now, muttered the blonde ninja, forcing his sleepy body to get up, jerks. You're the one who asked Ashura for weapon training.
At your suggestion, I might add, and those shadow clones of yours returned after a long time, the first one dispersed after performing your duties as Poseidon, and the one you created to carry that Quincy boy, where did you send him? That's what I'm curious about. I sent that specific clone to recon on someone who was watching our fight with those Arrankar guys, Naruto sighed before rising from his comfortable bed and beginning to dress. This person was tricky to recon, but he also has tremendous power, and I doubt he's an enemy, he realized, before adding, it's Friday today, right? The week was nearly over for the shinobi and his companions, but they are now aware of what is to come. After Naruto returned from his meeting with Yamamoto in Soul Society, he informed Ichigo and the others about a new foe known as Arrankars, hollows who have achieved Shinigami-like powers by removing their masks, which was believed to be extremely painful for them. Unsurprisingly, Kazuki and Yoruichi already knew about the Arrankars, so they weren't overjoyed or surprised to hear the news. Yep, now that his clone has scattered, the shinobi understands the guy was a man. An elderly but muscular man dressed in a green robe. Naruto left his beloved Nemean jacket behind because he wouldn't need it, leaving him in his shinobi jeans and orange t-shirt with Tenkaichi on his back in his ninja pouch. He exited his room and shut the door before proceeding to the basement chamber for weapons training. Because of his subtle footwork, he didn't wake anyone up from their comfortable rest. He descended the stairs and entered the massive underground room where the next phase of his training would begin. "All right," Naruto said as he unsealed the trident from his wrist and shook it back to its former form. The blonde ninja couldn't take his gaze away from the formidable and antique weapon in his possession. It was about 4 inches taller than him, standing 6 feet from the buttocks to the 3 tips. Shaking his head from his trance, Naruto let the trident lean against him and generated 20 clones before resuming control of the weapon. "Ashura, we're ready to get started." With a smile, Ashura emerged from his reincarnation's body a second later. "All right, let's get started," the powerful ninja said as he waved his hand, forcing numerous shakuho to emerge in each clone's hands before drawing his own shakuho from his back and holding it properly. "Follow my stance, observe my hands to see how loose or tight they need to be to hold your weapon, and also observe my feet as I move with my shakuho."
Hi. The entire underground area was filled with the sound of a hard worker or employees who will stop at nothing to get stronger in order to protect those he cares about. "Noon. Is there anything else, Ashura?" "Nope. You're no fun some of the time," Naruto grumbled as he stood up and twirled the trident beside him.
The entire morning training regimen was centered on 3 fundamental but critical aspects of holding a spear or a staff: postures, footwork, and offensive-defensive abilities. For the latter, Ashura taught Naruto to parry, thrust, and slash assaults because a spear is not like a sword, while simultaneously using same moves for defensive purposes. Back with Naruto and Ashura, the ethereal creature simply shrugged as he faded back inside the former, stating, "Don't forget to use both hands when swinging the trident downward for a stronger slash or strike."
"Got it," Naruto said, stopping whirling the trident and gripping it firmly with the leather grip.
He then took a breath and made a series of hand signs, all with his left hand. Earth style, rampart of flowing soil, the golden 3-pronged spear shone briefly beneath the blonde's grasping palm. Before Naruto knew it, the ground beneath him began to shake and rise, forming a towering and wide cliff with a deep and vast end beneath it. "Wonderful. I've always wanted to be able to form hand signs with a single hand, but only when wielding the trident."
"Cool. Awesome." Naruto peered down and discovered Jinta and Ururu, who were accompanied by Tessai, Kazuki, and Yoruichi. "So you were the one who caused the earthquake just now?" Yoruichi grinned as the young ninja paled at the thought of producing an earthquake. "We just heard there are a lot of casualties all over town. Good job."
"You're doing well." "Yep. Hey, you two are supposed to be my partners," a tick-marked Naruto commented, shaking his left hand in annoyance, "and you guys know damn well I can keep control." Ashura and Kurama shrugged at the Jinchuriki before resuming whatever they were doing and cutting the link. "Jerks," murmured the blonde before addressing to the people below. "Sorry about that, I was just practicing using the trident while using ninjutsu." "Watch," he said, forming another set of hand signs with his left hand, and the trident shone briefly again. Flowing waterfall water style. When a gigantic and steady waterfall suddenly issued from the shinobi's foot and plunged into the deep end at the bottom, producing a large pool, Tessai, Ururu, and Jinta were stunned. "Pool," Jinta exclaimed gleefully as he dashed towards the swimming quarters while stripping down to his boxers. "Cannonball." Before relaxing in the water, the small boy came to the surface and spewed a spray of water. He also gave Naruto a thumbs up, which he returned. "Well, are you guys just going to stand there or enjoy this new pool I made for you all?" questioned the stated blonde shinobi, shifting his focus to the rest of the gang.
The guys of Urahara's shop plunged into the water without hesitation after stripping down to their boxers, but Ururu and Yoruichi changed into swimsuits out of decency, especially for the latter. Yoruichi asked everyone in the pool, "Everyone, what do we say to Naruto?" after getting into the pleasant fresh water.
"Many thanks, not a problem. Now for me, I'm going to take a shower." A loud growl echoed from his stomach, making Naruto embarrassed, which didn't stop everyone down below laughing at him, right after I put something in my stomach.
He jumped down from the cliff and over the pool, trying to save the little pieces of his crushed dignity. A piercing scream pierced Naruto's eardrums as he was about to take a stride, forcing him to spin around with the trident at the ready. What he saw in front of him took him by surprise. Does that look like a fin?
It was, indeed, a fin. A slightly curved object swerving across the water that belongs to numerous mammals of different sea life species, two of which have very similar fins and are sometimes confused for each other. What is it? A dolphin or an S-shark? Ruru stuttered as Yoruichi brought her into her arms, attempting to console her as best she could while Tessai prepared a Bakudo technique in case of an attack.
When Ruru screamed and saw the fin, everyone else freaked out and ran out of the water before it ate one of them, despite the fact that 3 of them are spirits and cannot be hurt by anything in the living world.
Someone else answered her query before anyone else could. Young lady, I am a dolphin, not a shark. Everyone's eyes widened when they discovered the fin of a dolphin, a talking dolphin. Strangely, it was wearing a cloak over its body, with the emblem of a trident on it. The aquatic creature swung its attention about until it caught sight of Naruto, who could have sworn the dolphin's eyes widened. My lord, I have finally found you.
With everyone's attention on him, Naruto looked around before pointing to himself, puzzled. Me? And did you just call me lord? Yes, my lord. Lord Poseidon has requested your presence at his palace, the dolphin said before recalling something crucial he had forgotten to do beforehand. Please excuse my etiquette. I am Delphin, god of dolphins and Lord Poseidon's lieutenant. Delphin? Yes, Delphin responded before swimming near to the edge as Naruto approached. I've always wanted to meet the mortal who succeeded my lord. It's an honor.
The honor is mine, Delphin. Naruto smiled as the immortal dolphin chirped cheerfully. So when do I have to go to Poseidon's palace? And can they come too? The blonde youngster gestured at Urahara and the others with the trident without looking sideways. However, the response was a shake of the head. What's the harm? Only you have been granted entry into Lord Poseidon's domain. Now we must proceed, my lord. We can't keep everyone waiting, and as a sea creature, I can't stay in this pool for much longer. Oh, Naruto looked about at the others, who gave him the, "We'll be okay," look before shrugging and stepping into the water, which had a surprise and noticeable effect. Lord Poseidon was right about the trident, he said, looking at the sword in his right hand. Of course, why would he lie about such a thing? Chirped Delphin, moving his left flipper forward as if gesticulating. Hold on to me, my lord, you may not be used to teleportation. He noticed the child about to say something, but the latter decided to remain silent for the time being. Naruto then grabbed the flipper with his open palm while holding the trident hard in his right hand. Urahara and the others stared as Naruto and Delphin vanished in a cloud of sea foam, leaving the room to smell like the sea for a brief period before they vanished. Mr. Urahara, Ruru asked, pinching her fingers together as she drew Urahara's attention. Where did Naruto and the dolphin go? Ah, Kazuki mused, softly placing his palm on the shy girl's head. They went to Poseidon's underwater and forbidden domain, a magnificent place that houses the gems of the seas themselves, Kazuki and Tessai both observed, tears flowing down their cheeks.
Huh? Ururu and Jinta inquired, puzzled, before Yoruichi pulled them back into the pool, rolling her eyes and mumbling to herself, men.
Unknown address. There are mysteries beneath the deep blue water that are still unknown to mankind living on the drylands of continents. One of them is based on myths from ancient Greece. A story about a strong civilization that was once a dryland country before it mysteriously vanished and sank into the sea. Forever lost, until now.
I must be dreaming, Naruto exclaimed as he gazed around the new room he was in. It was a spacious room with gray ocean floors painted on the walls and ocean blue flooring. Sway's species, the hippocampi, was depicted on the walls, along with other fabled creatures like as the Pegasi. The boy was fascinated by the architecture before noticing something else in the middle of the room. A king-sized bed with 5 cushions. He was inhaling water. Wait, I'm underwater, and I'm not choking or drowning. Wahoo! Delphin nodded as he swam around the chamber till he came to the 2 doors with the trident symbol engraved on them. Poseidon's emblem. This is the guest room where you'll be spending the night, she says, ignoring the remark from the boy. The dolphin swam away. Lord Naruto, please follow me.
The shinobi complied as he swam alongside the immortal dolphin through the corridor, gazing at the various unique paintings that hung the walls, one of which depicted Poseidon battling the titan of the sea, Oceanus, and another depicting him creating the hippocampi. When they reached the end of the hall, where there was another set of doors, one particular picture caught Naruto's attention so much that he stopped to give it more attention. The painting depicted a beautiful woman standing on the edge of a cliff, flanked by two unusually large lions. The woman had long midnight black hair, fair skin, and brilliant green eyes that matched the seas like a certain sea god, and she was dressed in a white sleeveless Greek dress adorned with white and blue flowers, with a blue amulet around her neck and a small crown on her head.
Beautiful, Naruto said to himself as he lost himself in the image. Ah, Delphin said as she swam up to the boy and glanced at the artwork, that woman is Lord Poseidon's mother. Lady Rhea is known as the Titaness of fertility, motherhood, and comfort. She is also referred to as the mother of the gods. Naruto shook his head, jolting himself awake, and voiced the obvious question, where is Rhea? The books never said anything about what happened to her after the war. His attention was fixed on the Titaness.
I'm not sure, Lord Naruto. Lord Poseidon is the only one who knows where she is or how she is doing. But, Delphin swam to Naruto's right side and began pushing him with his head. We cannot keep everyone waiting any longer. With each push, the dolphin grumbled, panting slightly and wondering why the boy was so heavy. Okay, I'm going, Naruto groaned as he stopped resisting Delphin before the latter pushed open the doors and swam in, but not before taking one last look at the painting. When Naruto turned his head forward to see the new room, he was even more surprised because it was bigger than the one he appeared in, with the same designs and species, only bigger and better. This must be the throne room.
Indeed, Lord Naruto. I'll notify them that you've arrived. Naruto looked in the direction Delphin was swimming and saw Poseidon standing in front of 3 thrones with 2 people beside him, as if they were talking to him about something, the Olympian wearing magnificent flowing green robes and a crown of shining seashells on his head.
To the right of the sea god stood an incredibly beautiful fair-skinned woman with long and wavy midnight black hair that reached her mid-back, light green eyes, and fair skin, dressed in a simple sea blue dress that appeared to be made of the sea as it waved with the currents, and her hair was held back by a thin net of bright pearls and silk.
On the other side of the woman is a man with a tan, sea blue eyes, and a beautifully black trim beard and hair, dressed in a Greek toga that revealed 2 prominent and interesting features about him. His legs were actually one tail fin, and his teeth like shark fangs.
As Delphin approached the trio of immortals, all Naruto could do was stand there in the middle of the throne room with the trident in his hand, thinking about the Titaness, Rhea. When he was staring at the painting, he felt a kind of calmness that comes from someone who loves deeply, like a mother would for her child or someone who has feelings for another.
I think a certain shinobi has a crush on someone, and his name is Naruto, Kurama joked as Ashura chuckled at the blushing Naruto.
You got it all wrong there, the youngster responded, blushing slightly and attempting to defend himself.
The Olympian and his family of immortals arrived just in time to save the Jinchuriki before Kurama or Ashura could make another taunt.
Naruto, it's great to see you again, Poseidon said cheerfully as he extended his left hand, which Naruto joyfully shook with his open hand, before the sea god noticed something odd about his successor, namely his right arm. Where is the golden fleece? Poseidon asked.
Oh, yes. Orihime, one of my pals, received it from me. I gave it to her because she isn't much of a fighter. I hope that's okay, Naruto said before immediately adding, and thank you for the gifts. My pals are really grateful. I'm glad to hear that, Poseidon said, motioning to the woman on his right. This is my wife, Amphitrite, the queen of the seas, he said before motioning to the man on his left. And this is my son, Triton, the god of messengers and fish, he said, looking over his shoulder to his lieutenant. That's all I have for now. The dolphin deity bowed to the royal family before swimming through the doors, most likely to tour the remainder of the palace or take a break from his duties for the time being.
Naruto cleared his throat and tried to be as polite as he could as he introduced himself. I am Naruto Uzumaki. The young mortal gave a small bow to the 2 gods, who both nodded, before standing up. It is an honor to meet you too, and I thank you for inviting me to.
He must be joking, Triton scowled before being shushed by his mother. Naruto, my boy, you are in Atlantis, Poseidon said with a hearty grin. Ha! Are you surprised? You know of the god's existence and Mount Olympus? Poseidon inquired, his sense of humor never fading. Ho! My lord, Amphitrite said, placing her hand on her husband's shoulder, perhaps it is best we start the tour for our young guest here. The husband and son agreed before the trio of immortals swam towards another set of doors, followed by a surprised Naruto.
Karakura High School, Karakura Village. How am I going to proceed? That was Ichigo Kurosaki's mantra since waking up this morning, as he sat against the fence wall where he usually goes for lunch with his friends. This thing is starting to go out of control since Soul Society. Also, his inner hollow spoke to him and declared that he will break free from Ichigo's control and take over his body because the latter was weak. Ichigo, the substitute Shinigami, was jolted out of his reverie when he noticed Orihime and Chad approaching him. For some reason, Ichigo always feels tranquil, as if all of his difficulties, even recent ones, had vanished when his friends are near, especially his fellow orange-haired comrade. Chad, he looked at the door, expecting Ryu to appear, but he didn't. Have any of you ever seen Ryu?
Chad was the first to answer, shaking his head. No, not since the Arrankars arrived in town.
Perhaps he's on a top-secret mission to eradicate hollows and vampires. Orihime murmured, picturing Ryu fighting hollows and vampires in a dark cloak and headgear.
I hope everything's all right with the guy, Ichigo and Chad said as the girls sat down and began eating one of her unusual meals. Not that I care about him, Ichigo answered hastily, attempting to seem harsh. Chad. What are you trying to hide from us, Ichigo? Orihime paused her eating to listen and looked at Ichigo and Chad, who were locked in a stare down. I understand if you want it to yourself, but you don't have to deal with it alone. You have pals that will support you every step of the way. A voice cut through their listening ears before Ichigo could respond. Hello there, the trio said as they approached the door to see the transfer student, Rias, and the other transfers. Are you okay with us hanging out with you three? In fact, we do mind. Great, Rias said, ignoring Ichigo's response as she and her peerage approached them and sat down with their sandwiches. When they did, Ichigo, Orihime, and Chad were on their way out the door. Hey. What? Ichigo questioned, a bored expression on his face as he looked at the red-haired girl. We were already done. You guys enjoy your meals.
Rias and her peerage exchanged a sweet pout as they watched Ichigo and his buddies leave the roof. Well, I've never. They suspect us, Rias said to Kaneko, who sat between Yuto and Issei. Yuto exchanged a nod with Kaneko, who was munching on a candy bar. I agree with Kaneko, that Ichigo guy is wary of us. I saw the way he looked at us, and something tells me he or the other two will not tell us about Uzumaki. What do you propose we do, Yuto? Issei demanded angrily. I, for one, want to beat that guy up for disrespecting Rias in such a way.
Rias groaned and shook her head as Akeno giggled at her younger classmate's eagerness. We want them on our side, Issei, and that includes Uzumaki. She began eating her meal like everyone else did while thinking of something. There has to be a way to gain their trust, but what is it? Perhaps an event? Asia wondered anxiously. Everyone turned to gaze at the healer as she elaborated on her plan. We could invite them over for a party, so they can feel relaxed around us. That's a fantastic idea, Issei said, making Asia blush and turn her gaze away from the youngster. This perplexed the youngster. Agreed, Kenko said before eating her candy bar and pulling out another candy bar with Yuto, Akeno, and Rias nodding their heads in accord. With that, the Grimoire peerage concluded their conversation and entered a peaceful moment of stillness as they savored their meals and gazed up at the huge blue sky above them. Atlantis Poseidon's palace, wow, that was incredible. Poseidon and Amphitrite grinned as they returned their gaze to discover the mortal in a coma. I'm glad to hear that, and I hope you're ready for supper, Poseidon replied as his wife laughed at the boy's predicament. Yeah, I am, Naruto murmured dejectedly, loathing his body for making the unpleasant sounds. Naruto was given the grand tour of a lifetime for the entire evening. A tour of the ancient and hidden city of Atlantis or Poseidia, which was the size of Los Angeles if not larger, as Poseidon and his family functioned as the shinobi's personal guide when they explored the underwater city. Naruto had observed a few distinctive elements of Atlantis during the visit. One of these was a 200-foot wall that ringed the city and had 4 gates for entry and exit. Each gate pointed north, south, east, and west and was monitored by men of the Atlantean army. The city's network of streets, as well as the levels of houses and buildings, are also formed of marble and pearls. The last point to mention is that Poseidon's palace is located in the city's center, which is tactically valuable in the event of a fight. When the shinobi and the royal family entered the dining hall, they found a large square table composed of pearls, diamonds, and coral. It was large enough to seat 40 persons comfortably. A series of 3 chandeliers hung over the table, each with a miniature figurine of a hippocampus, a pegasus, and a hydra affixed to the ceiling and holding them in place. They quickly took their seats, with Naruto sitting beside Poseidon and between his wife and son. Amphitrite gently snapped her fingers, and out rushed a swarm of dolphins and mermen, each carrying a tray of food disguised by a cover. Before Naruto realized it, The merman and dolphins had vanished as quickly as they had arrived, forcing him to withdraw the cover that concealed the food, his eyes widening in amazement and awe as his entire world was blown away. His companion, it seemed, was not pleased. "No, Naruto, don't do it," Kurama yelled, his claws digging deep into the mindscape grass. "If the old man Six Paths finds out about this, you won't be able to sit for a year, and he always finds out. That's what he does. Naruto, don't do it, listen to us."
"I'm sorry, I can't resist. I've been separated from my love for far too long," Naruto said through the link, taking a fork from the table and delving into the miso ramen with additional pork and chicken that had been placed in front of him. As he enjoyed the long-forgotten yet exquisite taste, his face lit up with delight. "This is delicious," he exclaimed. Triton scoffed, but Amphitrite kicked him in the leg before she said, "I'm glad you're satisfied, my lord."
"I'm sorry to interrupt you, Lady Amphitrite," Naruto said, seeing Triton's look before disguising his teeth, "but I don't really feel comfortable with people calling me Lord. I'm just a young man, and please just call me Naruto."
The mortal's refusal to be treated like royalty startled the Queen of the Seas. According to her experience, mortal women and men will seize the opportunity to be treated like royalty, and they will frequently treat others as though they are superior to them. Unlike most mortal men, this mortal is sincere and pure of heart. "Husband, you chose a very worthy successor," she thought to herself before smiling at Naruto. "Very well, Naruto." Before replying, the blonde ninja reddened slightly at the woman's smile. "Lord Poseidon," the guy said, as the boy stared at him with a serious expression. "I have a question for you. Are you an idiot?" His responses were stunned. "How on earth did you cheat on such a beautiful and faithful woman like your wife here?" Amphitrite blushed slightly at the comment. "Don't forget that she married you after initially refusing to do so." "Why, you ungrateful," Triton snarled as he rose from his seat, determined to teach this mortal a lesson in respect. "You will regret speaking to my father in that manner, mortal."
"You are correct." "Huh?" was all Triton could say as he and Naruto approached a scowling sea god.
"You are correct, Naruto and Triton, sit down, I will not tolerate your rudeness." Triton sat back down in his seat, glaring at the ninja. "I'll never understand why I cheated on my wife so many times, but I love her," Poseidon remarked, his hand intertwined with his wife's. "Fortunately, we sought assistance. Help, like couples therapy," said Naruto, perplexed. "Yes," Amphitrite said, gazing into her husband's eyes, "but it was worth it. He hasn't had an affair in the past 100 years. She giggled before turning to face Naruto, "And I appreciate you chewing out my husband for his infidelities and protecting my honor, but that's my job. And thank you for calling me beautiful."
"No worries. So, what's the point? Do you have a girl in your life right now?" Amphitrite inquired. "A young, handsome man like yourself can't be on the market," she says. Naruto saw images of a certain purple-haired woman flash before his eyes. Her long legs, womanly form, purple eyes, and soft skin. "Well, there is one girl with whom I am in a relationship. Her name is Seiko, and she is from Japan." "Is she attractive?" "Very." "Well, that's good for you, Naruto," Amphitrite said, stifling a yawn with her palm. "Well, I guess I'll call it a night."
"Is it night?" Triton gave a short bow, ignoring the mortal. "Good night, ma'am."
"Have a good sleep, Lady Amphitrite," Naruto remarked, having gotten over the fact that it was already night. He observed as the queen walked to her king, whispering something into his ear before departing the room with her hips swaying. Naruto was watching Poseidon dash out of the hall when he heard a symphony of laughing and giggles. It appears that the couple's therapy is working.
"Listen here, mortal," Naruto said to a glaring Triton, "let's get a few things straight. I don't like you. I don't believe you're worthy to be my father's successor, and I especially despise the fact you're wielding my father's weapon in front of me." Triton stood up with a smirk, "However, that won't be for long." "What do you mean by that, Triton?" Naruto inquired, only to be met with silence. "Great, now I have an immortal hating me, and I haven't done anything yet," he sighed as he walked down the corridor to his temporary quarters. Naruto walked into his room and sat down on his new bed, still holding the trident in his right hand. "Something else is going on, and I'm not sure what it is, I'll just sleep on it."
The pictures of his lover, Seiko, and the Titaness, Rias, were the last two things he remembered before falling asleep. Later that night, Southgate Atlantis walls, did you happen to see him?
"Have you seen who, Cable? Lord, he's Poseidon's successor." Citizens all over the city saw him walking with the royal family and holding our king's personal weapon, Cable responded with a bounce of his feet.
The man stood about his average height, with a slender but strong frame, and a brown beard. He wore Atlantean army armor, which had a black breastplate, arm guards, shin guards, and a helmet. Finally, his sword hangs on the right side of his belt, while his right arm wields a black spherical shield.
That statement was mocked by the other man. No, I haven't. This Drylander will not be respected by me. I'm sure he demanded our people bow before him as he walked through our city. Like his brother Atlantean, he has a slim and muscular frame, but he has a blue Pegasus tattoo on his left arm. He, too, is dressed in black Atlantean armor, but he wears his sword on the left side of his waist and wields his shield with his left arm.
He didn't, in fact, say what? The man was taken aback. No, he didn't, and when he and the royal family walked through town, people started calling him Lord, only for the Drylander to tell everyone not to, and he even publicly admitted that he's uncomfortable with people addressing him as such and asked us to address him by his name. Which is it? Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto. The man snorted briefly before laughing his boots off, while Cable did not appear pleased with his pal. The man eventually came to a halt and wiped his eyes. What a stupid name, huh? He thought, noticing Cable's disapproving stare. Come on, man. This guy's a Drylander, and you're okay with him setting up shop in our city? This one is unlike the rest of his kind, Doctor, Cable responded venomously. Doctor scoffed before walking around and leaving his comrade to patrol the rest of their sector of the wall. Cable groaned, knowing that his friend, Doctor, and many of his fellow Atlanteans had a great disdain toward surface dwellers for a variety of reasons, the primary one being that the oceans are becoming tarnished and polluted as a result of the dwellers' pricey industrial life. When the young Atlantean was about to resume his patrol, something in the distance caught his eye, compelling him to scream out to his companion. Doctor. The man arrived, albeit unwillingly, and grumbled the entire time. Take a look with your spyglass. What and why? Just go for it. Doctor swiftly took out a spyglass, a little telescope, and looked through it to find whatever was tying his pal up. When he turned the scope to extend its range, his entire body shivered with fear and worry, which Cable picked up on. What exactly is it? Sound the alarm. Doctor said quietly to himself before yelling at his friend, sound the alarm. The palace of Poseidon, talk to me, Delphin. As soon as they heard the warning, Poseidon, Amphitrite, and Delphin convened in the royal room. Delphin was already dressed in war gear appropriate for his species. Delphin bowed before the king and queen before reporting, My lord, 2 men spotted an anomaly at the south gate and it's approaching fast, he said with a fearful tone. Poseidon and Amphitrite both noticed. Delphin, is there anything else? Amphitrite inquired, concerned. She noticed her lifelong companion shaking his tail sideways, a sign that the dolphin is afraid of something. And there aren't many monsters or eternal beings who can frighten her mammal pal. Please tell us, she pleaded urgently. It's the creature I'm concerned about, What's going on here? The 3 immortals turned around to one of the doorways and found Naruto standing there, dressed like a warrior rather than an adolescent. What's going on, Lord Poseidon? What's the alarm for? Naruto inquired as he peered around, attempting to detect the threat to the city. We don't know, but Delphin was about to tell us something important when you cut him off. Naruto blinked like an owl, his mouth slightly agape, before shyly giggling to himself, my bad.
Come here, you'll need to hear this as well. Poseidon motioned his replacement to approach, which Naruto did quickly. Delphin, tell us, the god said to his squirming lieutenant. The dolphin gazed at his lord, then at Amphitrite, and last at Naruto before finally replying, the creature is.
What exactly is it, Delphin? Don't keep us guessing. Delphin answered, the creature is the Hydra, heeding the blonde mortal's request. When the dolphin said that name, Naruto's eyes widened in surprise before he watched the color of Poseidon's and Amphitrite's faces grow pale. The hush was broken by a few thumps in the ground before the 2 royalties regained their calm, much to the ninja's relief. Someone must be behind this, because no sea creature, no matter how powerful or dangerous, can dare to attack Atlantis, Poseidon remarked before ordering one of his guards to get his armor. Naruto then chimed in, can it be a titan or a god? Yes, young one, but the only one who can stand up to Poseidon is. Amphitrite trailed off as a shocked expression took over. She then turned to face her husband, who had already worked it out. Do you believe he survived the war? Who are you talking about, Lady Amphitrite? The previous ruler of the seas and lord of the waters, also known as the father of the waters.
Previous ruler, the ninja struck a contemplative position and mentally examined his Greek mythology expertise. He eventually remembered Gaia and Orano's firstborn son. Oceanus, the titan of the ocean. Didn't you say he died in the war with a few other titans? Naruto asked, adjusting his gaze to the direction of the south gate.
Poseidon was about to respond when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Father. Everyone's attention was drawn to Triton, who was swimming towards his parents in green combat gear. Father, I just returned from the south gate. It, like the other gates, is sealed shut, and all the men in that area are ready for combat, he said, pulling something from his right arm guard and handing it to his father, King. A note. This note was discovered outside the wall, near the gate.
Poseidon opened the green note and studied the printed contents with his eyes scrolling down. He crushed it after reading it before burning it with a glow in his palms, converting it into ashes. Oceanus is indeed alive, and he has challenged me to a fight for control of the seas in Atlantis, he said, feeling everyone's gaze on him. You can beat him, Lord Poseidon, you did it before, you can do it again, Naruto stated casually, only to be interrupted by the Olympian's chuckle. What's the big deal?
As I recall, another Poseidon exists, and he can fight in my place. Say what now? A perplexed and anxious Naruto inquired. Away from the walls of Atlantis, this bites. Naruto complained as he rode on Sue's head as the hippocampus, in her giant state, swam towards a massive dust cloud, most likely the location of the Hydra. Sue, fortunately for Naruto, did not remain inside the Nemean lion garment, but instead remained within his pouch the entire time. I was expecting to see an immortal battle.
You must relax, Naruto, anxiety poisons all warriors, including shinobi.
Kurama was in agreement with the ghostly shinobi. After all, haven't you always wanted to fight an immortal? Now is your chance. Not against a titan, yelled the youngster inside his thoughts as he ordered Sue to halt.
The hippocampus agreed while being wary of the dust cloud in front of her and her companion. And you said the same thing about Poseidon, Naruto said before returning his gaze to Atlantis and calculating the distance between the city and his current location. So we're about 900 yards from Atlantis, he said, standing up from his sitting position and bracing himself and the trident in his palm for anything.
The young Jinchuriki was certainly not anticipating the unexpected as the cloud cleared from his vision.
An enormous and scaly lizard-like sea monster with several heads, each diamond-shaped with a mouth lined with rows and rows of green reddish razor teeth, though one was larger than the others, stood before him and Sue. This is the renowned and terrifying Hydra.
Who is this? Inquired an elderly but commanding voice. Naruto searched for the guy who spoke and discovered him standing on the larger head of the Hydra. Oceanus. Oceanus was a larger and taller man with a strong frame, a long white beard, and bullhorns. He wears mostly silver armor with matching arm guards and shin guards, as well as a dark navy blue loincloth around his waist. The breastplate is carved with an elaborate image of a sea serpent, and his head is protected by a large helmet topped with a navy blue plume. Finally, a blue electric current surrounds the man's body at all times. You are not the sea god, Oceanus remarked, slightly disappointed and angry. He then shook a weapon from his back, revealing a red double-bladed sword with a bronze grip. Naruto was then struck by one of the Titan's blades. Who are you, and don't tell me any lies. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I am Poseidon. The title, at any rate, the Jinchuriki said honestly, pointing the trident at the immortal. He could sense the tension between Sue and Hydra because they had been snarling and growling at each other the entire time.
Oceanus listened intently and gazed into the boy's blue eyes, so he did what any immortal would do. He burst out laughing. BWAAHAHAHAHAHA. The man shouted like a hyena as Naruto saw the Titan try to keep himself from falling on his buttocks. He finally did so after wiping a single tear from his left eye. That's a great one, kid. A mortal being the heir to a god. I'm not joking, and I'll say it once. Naruto paused to ensure Oceanus' attention before adding, you can turn around now and leave Atlantis alone, or you and I can hash it out. I'm fine with either.
Hard to choose, Oceanus said, faking difficulties as he struck a thinking position. I think I'll go with the second option. Hearing the Titan prepare his weapon, Naruto smiled. I was thinking the same thing, he remarked as he clutched the trident with both hands, not noticing it blazing blue. Because your challenge is a one-on-one match, I assume the Hydra will not interfere with our battle. Yes. The same goes for the hippocampus, Oceanus observed as his weapon began to glow green. Naruto nodded before sprinting towards Oceanus, quickly closing the 300-yard gap between them with their glowing weapons ready. When the two fighters were within striking distance of each other, Naruto and Oceanus swung their respective weapons at each other, resulting in a clash. As a blinding light came from the weapons and engulfed both the Titan and Olympian, a thunderous clap sounded throughout the seafloor. In the meantime, with Orihime Karakura town, today was a fantastic day. Yep. Orihime sighed as she and Ichigo strolled through the empty streets. When she didn't have anything else to do after school, she usually walked home alone, but Ichigo was accompanying her this time. He even offered to do so. Ichigo. The kid looked at her. Yeah, what is it? He didn't notice when she looked aside, but he swears Orihime was blushing. I was wondering if. She pushed her timidity aside and asked the boy strolling next to her, would you like to go out with me? Wah. Ichigo mumbled before almost losing his footing and falling a few feet before he came to a halt. He stared at Orihime, who had also come to a halt, her cheeks flushed. I'm at a loss for words. You don't have to say yes, forget it, I was stupid to. No, it's not silly at all, Ichigo said before lowering his voice and avoiding the girl's shower works. To be honest. He stroked the back of his head uncomfortably as he came up with the words. Why is this so difficult? I've been meaning to ask you out for quite some time. Really? A shocked Orihime exclaimed, his face tinged with relief and gladness.
Ichigo gave the girl a friendly grin. A sincere smile that made Orihime's stomach churn. Yeah, since we returned from Soul Society and from encouragement from a certain blonde ninja, the boy said as he remembered Naruto bugging him to ask the girl for a while in comments like, she likes you, Orihime has a figure that most girls her age would kill for and she's your friend and likes you, and so on.
So that's a yes, Orihime inquired, receiving a nod from the boy. Yay. Ichigo chuckled at his companion before offering his arm to Orihime, who swiftly accepted it and connected her arm with his before continuing their pace to the girl's house. They arrived to the residence after a few minutes only to find something interesting waiting for them. What exactly is that? Mail. Orihime extended out her arm and grabbed an envelope that was fastened to the door. She opened the mail and took out what appears to be an invitation. It's an invitation to a pool party, she exclaimed joyfully, bouncing on her feet. Who's it from? Ichigo inquired, raising his brow.
I'm not sure, but can we go please? It can count as our date, Orihime said with the prettiest puppy dog pout, and Ichigo couldn't help but nod. Yay.
Substitute Shinigami smiled at Orihime before pondering who was behind this and why. Oh well, he could worry about it later.
Deep Sea Floor vs. Naruto. Sway and the Hydra both whinnied and snarled as their master's battle continued, with streaks of blue and green light clashing several times until the streaks landed on the sea floor, revealing Naruto and Oceanus clashing their weapons against each other before the latter kicked the far younger mortal, sending him skidding backwards uncontrollably towards an underwater mountain. However, Naruto pounded the trident's buttocks, preventing himself from skidding any farther before dropping to one knee with his head down. After hearing heavy breathing, Oceanus laughed. What's the matter, mortal? Don't tell me you're tired yet, you're going to have to up your game if you want to beat a titan like myself.
Don't tell me, the ninja remarked, lifting his head to expose yellow toad eyes with orange coloring around them. That's why I've been in this form since the start of this fight. Odd form. But it does explain how you were able to withstand my attacks, Oceanus smiled, before swiping his blade horizontally, launching a streak of enormous ice spikes.
Naruto hopped over the spikes and swiped at his opponent while channeling wind chakra into the three tips of the trident. 3 blue crescent energy streaks emerged from the points and shot towards Oceanus, tearing up the sea floor and leaving slash scars. The Titan dodged the consecutive assaults while staring at Naruto, unconcerned about the boulder that had been cut into 3 parts. Darn it, Naruto cursed to himself as he landed before calming himself down, despite the fact that he had right to be furious. Even Sage Mode is insufficient, and I've been in it since we started. He certainly has. The young shinobi had entered Sage Mode minutes before their weapons clashed in the intention of getting a strong start against an immortal, let alone a titan. However, Oceanus was able to deflect all of his trident slashes and thrust attacks, as well as dissipate his water-style techniques, which wasn't a good idea. He's only made it this far due of his improved durability and strength in dealing with the titan.
Well, this has been fun and all, but you're really boring me now, Oceanus stated, wagging his left hand around to harden the water in front of him, constructing many huge hands out of water. These should be the end of you. Goodbye. As soon as he stated that, the hands extended for the blonde shinobi, expanding and closing as if they wanted to squeeze him. After a succession of Sage Mode boosted shunshuns, Naruto managed to escape all of the hands and emerge in front of Oceanus. He was about to launch another attack when he felt pain in his stomach, prompting him to look down and see Oceanus's left arm burrowing into it. You left yourself open when you were going to make your attack given you don't have a lot of experience with a weapon like that trident of yours, the Titan remarked before yanking his arm away from the shinobi, who soon collapsed over in pain. Now, let me show you what happens when a Titan is encountered.
Oceanus sank his blade into the earth next to him before launching a barrage of punches and kicks at Naruto. The Titan snatched the barely awake Olympian and hurled him javelin style with impossible strength, generating a shockwave as the child sped towards the mountain before crashing into it. The impact triggered a massive rockslide that engulfed the immobile shinobi. "I'm very disappointed, nephew," Oceanus said as he shook his head and looked off into the distance, where Atlantis could be seen. "Now I shall." His eyes widened in surprise as the rocks in front of him exploded, causing the Titan to look at it only to be punched in the face and sent flying away until he regained his composure. "What the hell?" he said as he turned around to see who had punched him. Naruto Uzumaki was shrouded in yellow flickering flames, with 6 Magatama markings around his neck, multiple designs extending partway down his arms and legs, and a swirl design in his stomach. He has orange eyes rather than yellow-toed eyes, pigmentation, and 2 prominent hair-like horns. The trident is still in his right hand, but it is now shrouded as well. "Nine Tails Chakra Mode," Naruto said as he gazed at the Titan, who was beaming as if he had finally found something fascinating. "I was a fool to think I could fight a Titan head-on while in Sage Mode. After all, your kind is the predecessor of the Olympian gods." "Thank you for the compliment," Oceanus said with a bow, grabbing his sword once again before his body began to light green. When his helmet cracked, he wasn't surprised, but he disregarded it. "That's more like it."
"I'm ready for round 2, Naruto declared before sprinting over to Oceanus, who did the same. Naruto was about to strike with the trident as they both returned to close range when Oceanus remarked,
"Lord Naruto, wake up, Lord Naruto." "Huh," was all Naruto murmured as Oceanus and all around him went dark. Poseidon's palace guest chamber, gasp, as Naruto's eyes fluttered open multiple times to adapt the light in the guest room, he felt a poke prodding his left arm, revealing a concerned and seemingly freaked out dolphin deity. "Delphin."
When the god saw the young mortal awake and living, he stopped nudging and his eyes brightened up. "I was worried about you, Lord Naruto." "Why?" Naruto wondered aloud before sitting up, silently wondering to himself, was that whole thing with Oceanus and the Hydra a dream? "I gotta admit, it was a hell of a dream. When I came to wake you up, you didn't wake up. At first, I thought you were joking, but after 10 minutes of trying, I feared you were dead. I was about to call Lord Poseidon when you woke up."
Naruto couldn't help but giggle and smile sheepishly. "I'm sorry about that, Delphin. I was having a really crazy dream. I apologize again for scaring you," he said earnestly as the ninja jumped out of bed and popped his strained joints, "and you don't have to call me Lord Naruto. And that is why I address you as such, Lord Naruto," Delphin said with a relieved sigh. "So you'll be returning to the surface world today, correct?" The blonde responded with a nod. "Before you return to your home, Lord Poseidon and Lady Amphitrite have something for you. They're waiting for you in the rotunda." "Really? Then what are we doing here?" Naruto screamed happily as he ran through the wide doors, Delphin close after. He swam up a spiral series of steps till he arrived to the rotunda, where Poseidon and his wife were patiently awaiting their visitor with a massive casket in front of them. The rotunda of Atlantis was a tiny coliseum with marble stone bleachers on the second level and 2 red thrones in the center for Poseidon and Amphitrite, most likely. It was a location in the palace in Atlantis that only the royal family had access to. Poseidon, his wife, and their son usually utilized the rotunda for sparring and power training.
Naruto cleared his throat, as if trying to catch their attention. "Good morning, Lord Poseidon and Lady Amphitrite. Please accept my apologies for keeping you waiting. I overslept," he remarked unwillingly. "It is no problem, Naruto. It happens to all of us, even us gods. Before you leave Atlantis, my wife and I thought to give you gifts to remind you of our city," Poseidon said as he reached inside his right sleeve of his robe and pulled out his gift, a dark blue conch shell, and handed it to the curious shinobi. "This is one of my most prized possessions. My mother gave it to me after our win over the Titans, and it is now yours. Cherish it." "I will, Lord Poseidon," Naruto responded passionately as he stuffed the conch shell into his pouch, which barely fit. "What's inside the box or coffin?" "It is something that may help you in the future," Amphitrite said, her hand giggling.
"Can I take a look?" Naruto inquired, smiling, only to be turned down by the goddess. "Man," he exclaimed as he approached the enormous casket and placed his left hand on it. "Well, when do I get to open it?"
When the time is right or when the situation demands it. Naruto grumbled as he pouted. I knew you'd say something like that, he said, turning to face the two gods. Thank you both for having me. I really enjoyed my time here in Atlantis, the blonde Jinchuriki said before disappearing in a bright yellow flash.
It was broken after several moments of silence. You didn't tell him yesterday, Amphitrite began abruptly, before her husband sighed, so what was the point of inviting him yesterday if you didn't tell him?
Poseidon groaned again before responding, he is not ready, at least not yet. Then why bother about Ma? Amphitrite started before her husband cut her off. Darling. Poseidon cut in before looking at his beautiful wife's green eyes, he is merely a boy, but I will tell him when he becomes a man, Naruto will be the greatest being in a force to be reckoned with. For now, he shall enjoy all the time he has right now, and so should we in our city.
Poseidon and Amphitrite turned around and proceeded towards the Rotunda's edge, where Naruto had been standing minutes before. The Olympian then wrapped his arms around his queen, who also wrapped her arms around him, and the duo gazed out at the panoramic vista of their beloved underwater metropolis, enjoying the cozy presence of each other while remembering Naruto Uzumaki in their minds and hearts. To be continued.
That's it for this part, guys. Thanks for listening to this video. If you did enjoy this video story, like, share, subscribe for more, and thank you all for happy support and have a great day.